Hello guys, this is part 5 of ASP.NET video series. In this session we will learn about the differences between ViewState, SessionState and ApplicationState variables. In fact, this is very commonly asked ASP.NET interview question, and it is also very helpful for us to know the differences between these so that we can choose the right type of variable to suit our needs in an application development. Before continuing with this session, I strongly recommend you to watch part 3 and part 4 of this video series. Let's look at example. Let's flip to Visual Studio. So we will create a web application. Click here. Now we need to create a new project. ASP.NET web application. Here it is. Next, name it as choose the location, whatever you like to choose. To this folder, create it, and we need a web form. So this will. So we will delete all unwanted file. Where is Solution Explorer? Delete this. Delete. Because we don't need these files. So I am deleting all of them that are not needed. We'll delete font and we'll delete content and delete app start. Okay, now then what? So we need to add a web form. No man. We need a web form. Okay. Go to add new item and view state 1. .axps, add it. Now go to the notepad. Here you need to copy this stuff of code. Paste it here. Now go to the design. Go to the code behind. There is a you need also copy and paste the coding for code behind or the view state 1. Okay, so I have two. So on this web form, view state one, I have two controls, a text box and a button control. And if you look at code behind of this page, I have a very simple 6 to 7 lines of code here. Let's actually run this application and see what is it doing at the moment. And then we will walk through the code. Now you have this text box, means if I run this application, first of all you need to save all the save changes and run this now. Okay, we need to go to the and put comment here also. And we will also go to web.config file, and here we will type this session state mode from here right now. Beneath this system.web. Let's save the changes. Go to ViewState 1 and run this application. Now at the moment, and then we will walk through the code. Now you have this text box and button here. Initially, when the page is loaded, when is the get request for this viewState1.axpx page, a value of 0 is displayed in this text box. Okay, here. And I click the button once, a value of 1 is displayed. If I click the button, a value of 1 is displayed. I click it again to third time. So every time you click the button, the click count is displayed in the text box. Now let's see how we have achieved this. To achieve this, we have actually made use of a view state. We have made use of a view state variable here. Okay, so in the page load event, handler for view state 1 page, I have this condition: if not is post back. If not is post back. If the request for view state 1 if the request for view state 1 page, if it is not a post back request, if it is a get request, then check whether if view state of click is null. Whether view state of click is null. If it is null, store a value of 0. Store a value of 0 within that view state of clicks variable. And then what we are doing? We are using the view state of clicks. We are using the view state of clicks to initialize the text box, the text property of text box 1 control. So here view state of click is initialized to 0, which in turn is used to initialize the text property of text box 1. So when we actually request view state1.axpx. When we type the URL, press enter, it is like the get request for that view state1.axpx. So a value of 0 is displayed. So if I come here and press enter, so a value of 0 is displayed because that is what we have told it to do. And then when I click the button, what is going to happen? When we click the button, the view state1.axpx page will be posted back to the server. So a new instance of view state1.axpx page is created, and then the page load event gets fired. Okay, means if I click the button, what is going to happen? A new instance of view state1.axpx page is created, and then the page load event gets fired. Gets fired again, and this piece of code will not be executed. This piece of code will not be executed because it is a post back request. Okay, means I have gone there and pressed the, without running the application, I press the enter in this text, in this search, in this box. Okay, so because this code will not be executed, because it is a post back request. Okay, we told this we told this to be executed only if not is post back. Okay, this code will be run if is not post back. Okay, but the request is post back request. So it will come to button click event, and we know in view state of clicks of the moment, we know in view state of clicks at the moment the value is 0. Okay, here you can see the value is 0. So at the moment the value is 0 in view state of clicks. So we are taking that value, means incrementing that value by 1, and then storing that value in click count variables, in click counts variable, which in turn we are using to set the text property of text box 1, which in turn we are using to set the text property of text box 1 control. So you see a value of 1 in the text box when I click button one time. So if I click it 1, so value is incremented one time. And finally look at this, we are storing we are storing the incremented value back in view state of clicks. So next time I click the button again, what is going to happen? At the moment the view state of clicks value is 1, so the view state of clicks value is 1, so we are taking that value out, adding 1 to it and storing it back in the click counts variable, and then we are using that to set the text property of the text box 1 control, and finally storing it back again in the view state of clicks. variable. That is why every time you click this button, you click this button, the value gets incremented as expected. All right, means if I click 1 2 3 4 5. All right, now let's add another web form to this ASP.NET web application project, and to do that I just right click the project name, project. Okay, right clicked it, add new item, and form, and name it as ViewState2. Let's call this ViewState2. So ViewState2.axpx. I'm going to go back to ViewState1 and copy key. I'm copying these. Copy and go to ViewState2, select to design mode, paste it, copy the button also. Okay, and paste right here. And if you look the source code, you don't want to it into the paragraph. So similarly, in code behind, copy and paste the coding of code behind from here. Copy the code and paste it in ViewState2.axpx page, code behind, in this code behind. Okay, so if you look at this, we have two web forms. ViewState1.axpx and ViewState2.axpx, which has got exactly the same design and the same code behind. So now let's highlight ViewState1, run this project. Run this project. First of all, we need to close it. So we are on ViewState1.axpx page now. Look at this, the value. Now I click on this page twice, thrice. Look at this, the value is 3 here. Now in the browser, I am going to navigate to ViewState2.axpx just by typing here. Just by typing in the URL of that page, press enter. So the moment I navigate to ViewState2.axpx, look at the value of, that you see in the text box. Okay, it is reverted back to 0. If I press enter, it is reverted back to 0. That is because ViewState variable of web form 1 is not, ViewState variable in ViewState1.axpx page is not available in ViewState2.axpx. So this proves that ViewState variable of one web form is available only within that web form. Okay, so when I click this button on ViewState2.axpx, look at this. At the moment, the value of ViewState2.axpx means if I click button for 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at the moment, the value on ViewState2.axpx is 5. But the moment I navigate to ViewState1.axpx, look at what is going to happen. Means if I navigate to ViewState1.axpx and I click and I press enter, or I navigate to this ViewState1, what is going to happen? It is not able to use the clicks, ViewState variable on ViewState2 page. Means if I click here, it reset to back 0. Whatever we have, on ViewState2.axpx, that value, you can't refer to that same value on ViewState1.axpx. So basically the point is ViewState of a web form is available ViewState of a web form is available only within that web form. Okay, now where is this ViewState stored? It is stored on the web server, or is it stored on the client? Okay, now where is the ViewState stored? Is it stored on the web server or is it stored on the client? It is actually stored on the page in a hidden field, and we have looked at that in the previous video session. Okay, so it is actually stored on the page. So if you look at this, when I double click, click that, the value gets incremented. Means go to the browser, I click this button 1, 2, 3, 4 and view the source, page source. So there will be a hidden field called _ViewState. This one, underscore ViewState. Okay, so this is the hidden field used by ASP.NET, to store the ViewState variable value. And if you look at the value here, it is actually, it looks like something encrypted. Means here, this one value, it is actually not encrypted, it is encoded. It is base 64 encoded on the server. It gets base 64 encoded in the page init event and then load it back into the variable or a control. Okay, so view state data is not stored on the web server or on the client. It is actually stored on the page in this hidden variable called underscore view state. So view state is stored on the page in a hidden field called underscore view state. Now because this now because because this view state is now because this view view state is stored on the page, if you close the browser or if you navigate away from the page, if you close the browser or you navigate from that page to another page, what happens? The view state will like basically be lost. Okay, and that is what we have seen just now. Okay, so I am currently on viewstate1.axpx. So oh, what I did made, I made a silly mistake. So I run this again. Click for 4 time, 2 time, and navigate to 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if you navigate away from the page, if you close the browser or you navigate that page to another page, what happens? The view state will basically be lost, and that is what we have seen just now. Okay, so I am currently on viewstate1.axpx. I click it 6 times. Means, okay. The moment I navigate away from viewstate1.axpx to viewstate2.axpx, look at that on viewstate 2, it is showing 0. Means now if I navigate from viewstate1 to viewstate2.axpx, look at that on viewstate2, it is showing 0. I click it once, twice, and then if I come back to viewstate1, means if I click now 1, 2, and then navigate to viewstate1, and look at that, what is going to happen? It is reset to 0. Why? Because once you navigate it away from viewstate2.axpx to viewstate1.axpx, the viewstate data of viewstate2.axpx page is lost. Along these same lines, if you close the browser again, the view state is gone. Because why? The hidden field is stored on the page. That is the reason why you lose it when you close the page or when you navigate away from that page. Okay. And okay, and ViewState is used by all ASP.NET. Means if we close it, Views ViewState is used by all ASP.NET controls to retain their state across post back, and we have spoken about this in the previous session of this video series. Now let's look at session state, and to understand session state variable, what I am going to do, I am going to add a web form. I'm going to add a web form. Okay, add and call this web form session state 1. So session state 1.axps and click. Now while we are here, let's add another web form and call it session state 2. So what is I am going to do? I am going to back view state 1, copy the design from there. Instead of copying it from design, I am going to copy it from HTML. View state 1, where is the design? Source, and copy this and go back to your sessions views session state 1, paste it here, which is much easier. So copy that, go to session state 1 HTML and paste it there. We have pasted it. So on the page, I am actually using the same design on session state 1.axpx as well. I am going to view state 1 code behind. So go to the design, double click here and go to the view state 1 and copy this code behind from here and paste it into the code behind of session state 1. And look at it. What is I am going to do here? I am going to change wherever I am using view state of clicks. I am going to change that to a session state variable by just typing in session. Okay, and I am going to copy paste that wherever I have view state. Means now I will type here only session and copy it and paste wherever I see the view state. Here, here, and here, and also here. Okay, and let's copy this code from here on, and go to the session state 2. But first we need to copy paste this coding from here, HTML coding, and go back to the session state, paste it here, go to the design, double click here, session state, copy this, okay. So we have pasted it on a session state 2.axpx as well. And then obviously we need to copy we have done our copy pasting coding in both session state 1 and session state 2. All right. So now select session state 1. Save all the changes. Control F5. So we are on session state 1.axpx page now, and look at this. I click the button once, twice, thrice. Okay, the value currently is 3. Means if I click it 1, 2, 3, the value is currently is 3. Instead of using, the logic is very much similar, except that in session state 1.axpx page, instead of using view state variable, I am using a session state or session of clicks. Okay, so now let me navigate away from the session state 1.axpx to session state 2.axpx. Okay, the moment I do that, look at this. Means if I navigate to, you see this value 3 in session state 1, but if I navigate to session state 2 and see, I'm currently on session state 2.axpx page. When it loads, I am currently on session state 2.axpx. Look at the value. It is still stayed at 3. That is because session state data is actually shared across all web form. Okay, session state data is actually shared across all web forms. We know that view state is available only within that web form. If you navigate away from that web form, the view state is basically lost, because view state is stored on the page, and view state of one web form is not available in another web form by default, whereas session state data is shared across all web form. So I click 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at this. On session state 2.axpx, the value is 7. Now if I type in session state 1.axpx and press enter, look at that it retains value 7. Means right now value is 7 at session state 2.axpx. But if I navigate to session state 1.axpx and press enter, look, it retains value 7. Why? Because session state data is available across all pages. But then let me make another change. Let me go to web.config file, and then within web.config file I added this element. Means go to the web.config file. We have added this. I added this element session state and underneath system.web element. I added this session state element, and if you look at this, I have set session state mode is equal to in process mode is in process. We will be talking about session state mode in a later video session, and then I am saying cookie less is equal to false. I am going to convert this to true. Okay, so what we are telling the web server to do here is basically we are telling it not to use cookies for session anymore. Instead, use session ID as part of the URL itself. Okay, look at this. Keep the cookie less set to equal to false. And when I run, first of all you need to close this one web browser, and we keep it false. Go to the session state 1, and when I run the application, look at the URL. Means if I run the application, look at this, you only have, it is saying local host on this computer and a port number, and then / the page name. Okay, but let's go back now to web config file and let's change cookieless to true, meaning we are telling the web server not to use cookies to store session IDs. So that means the session ID means go back to your the session IDs are now going to be passed in as part of the URL. So if you look at the URL now, now localhost, the port number, and then there is this S. Means if you close this and set it true, save the changes, go to the session state 1 and run the application and look at it here. And look at it here, the local host, look at the local URL. Now localhost, the port number, and then this S, and then this S, and then same, and then some alphanumeric number and some alphanumeric number. What is that? What is that? This is the unique session ID. This is the unique session ID there. What is that? It's unique session ID. How does the web server know where the request has come from? It uses this session ID. So how does the web server know where the request has come from? It uses this session ID. The web server uses this session ID to identify, okay, this request has come from this same server. Okay, so now look at this. I click the button once, twice, thrice, 4 times. Means I click this button 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I go here and navigate to session 2.axpx. So I navigate to and press enter. Look at this. I press enter. Same session ID. So it is retaining the state even on SessionState2.axpx. So sessions data is available across all pages. But look at this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to something else, or I'm going to completely delete this. If I delete this, from there, so the moment I delete that, look at that, all I am doing right now is deleting, and notice the value. It is at the moment 4. The moment I remove the session ID and when I press enter, and I press enter, what is going to happen? The browser gives it a new session ID. This is the new session ID. Okay. Oh my god. And when the request goes to the server looks at the session ID and then it identifies, oh, wait a minute, this is not the same ID I had before. So obviously this request is from a different user session. Okay, so obviously at that point of time, what happened to the value? Look at that, got reset to 0. So it was 4 previously, but now it is reset to 0. Okay, so session state data is shared across all pages, but across a single user session. Okay, so you can treat of session state data as a single user global data, meaning for a given user, the session state data is available across all pages for that specific user session. So session state variable are available across all pages, but only for a given single session. Session variables are like single user global data, and session state variables are stored on the web server. They are stored on the web server, and session state variable are cleared when the user session times out. The default is 20 minutes. This is configurable in web.config file. Let's understand what we mean by that. Now if you look at this, Now, now if you look at this, okay, let me copy this URL. Now, if you look at this, now let us copy that and put that in a notepad. So that is the session ID. So that is the session ID. That we have a unique session ID. Okay. Now let's click 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let me click 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have copied this URL here, and the value is right now 4. And let me go to let me close that browser window. Okay, but then I have this session ID there. Means if I close this, but then I have this session ID here, and let me go to basically localhost dot session state 2.axps. For example, now I get a new session ID. Means if I open copy this, not to this, you just need to copy this much of code and go to the browser. Localhost session state 2.axpx. Now I get a new session ID. I just click it. This is the new session ID, and then the that we have said the previous ID is this one. So I click it for once, copy that, means copy this URL and paste it in the notepad. And value is 1 for this URL. Close the browser window, and if you look at this, means if I now close this browser window, and if you look at this, so these session ID are different. So the session ID are different. When I press enter, look at this. Means if I copy this URL Though I have closed the browser and paste it here, and when I press enter, look at this. It remember the previous value. Means if I press this, then the value should be 4. Look at this. It remember the previous value, which is 4. So how long does the web server going to retain that session state data on the web server? Is it going to maintain that indefinitely? If it is going to do that, then at some point of time the web server is going to run out of memory. At some point of time, it has to remove those values from the web server memory. So how does the web server determines when to remove these value? Using a timeout value in web.config file. So in web.config file, wherever you have the session state element, specified mode is in process, use cookieless sessions along the same line. You can specify the timeout value, and this timeout value is in minutes, and by default it is 20 minutes, but you can change it. Now let's change it to 1 minute. Okay, means now close this and go to the web.config file, and here you need to specify timeout 1. And now save the changes and go to SessionState.1. Now run this. Run this application again. Now we will get a new session ID. Click once, twice, means clicks once, twice, 1 and 2, and copy this URL and delete all the requests from here. So the value for this 1 at the moment it is 2. For this value is 2. And then let me close this browser window. Close this browser window. And let's open another browser window, and obviously the moment I type in, I am going means go to the browser and I type in I'm going to SessionState2.axpx. So session and session dot to session state 2.axpx page, but look at that, when I press enter I get a different session ID. Means if I press enter here, so I get a different session ID, so it treats this user differently. So I am clicking once, twice, thrice, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's click it 10. Means I click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now let's copy that URL. Means copy that URL and paste in Notepad again. And the value is 10 for this URL. Now if you remember, in web config file we have set the session timeout to 1 minute. Now if it is more than 1 minute, now this session, now if it is more than 1 minute, now this session would have timed out and that value would have been 0 by now. Let's see that. But if it is not over 1 minute, it should still be there. So I am using the same session ID here. So when I press enter, so I am using the same session ID. And press enter and paste it here. So when I press enter, the value was 2. The value was 2 for that. As you can see, value was 2 for that URL. Look at this, it becomes 0. Meaning 1 minute passed. So web server has cleared that session. So session state variable are cleared. Session state variables are cleared that session. So session state variable are cleared when the user sessions timeout. So session state variables are cleared when the user sessions times out. The default is 20 minutes. However, this is configurable in web.config file. Now the important thing to keep in mind is that session state variable, are single user global data, which means they are accessible across all pages, but only for a given specific session ID. But whereas application state variables are like multi-user global data, let's understand that with an example. Okay, what I am going to do here, again I am going to add another web form. I am going to call this ApplicationState1, ApplicationState1.axpx. Okay, what we need to do now, close this browser and add web form. Click add and add another web form while we are here, and let's call ApplicationState2.axpx. Okay, cool. Now what we are going to do? Same exercise, copy and paste the design and the code. So let's copy the design. First means session state 1. Go to the session state 1. Design this and paste in and paste onto both application state 1 a.axps and application state 2.axps pages. So application state 1, let's go to application state 2. We have done it. Paste there. And now copy the code behind. So from session state 1.axpx means go to session state 1 and copy this and paste in code behind. But you need to do one thing also. Okay. And go to state 1 also. State 1 and here's the state 2. So what we will do in this page, and obviously we need to modify that to application state variable. So what we will do, we will type here application and copy this applications what happened to it. Okay, I made a mistake here. What mistake I did here? Okay, where I had to copy this. I copy this and pasted it here. Okay, I wrongly pasted it. Now this is the application state 1. So change it to application and copy it. Paste wherever you see the session. Okay. Now copy this code behind and paste it in application state 2. Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and run this application state 1. So now you see that we get a different session ID. Means if we save this all and go to application state 1, so if we run this application, we get a different session ID for this user, application state 1. So let the page load, look at the session ID. This is the session ID. And I click this 3 times. That is something. Now 1, 2, 3, we have clicked the button for 3 times, so the value is 3. Let me copy this URL. Copy this URL and paste it in the okay. And the value for this URL is 3. Now let me go to application state 2. Let me go to application state 2, navigate to application state 2 .axpx, another web form. But the application, application state variable value is shared between these web forms. I click for 5, means if I click enter, application state variable value is shared between these web forms. I click for 5. I click for 5, and if I go back to 1, I still see the same value. Means if I go to application state 1 and press enter, I still see the same value, just like session state. But then another difference is another difference is, let me copy this. Let me copy this, put here, and the value is 5 for this. Now if you look at this, for this unique session ID, if you look at this, for this unique session ID, the value is currently 5. Now what I am going to do, I am going to copy that URL, open another browser window, paste that, but I am going to delete this session ID. Means I copy this, and then go to the another browser. Here is the Google Chrome, and open it. No, I don't need more, and press it here. Now I delete this session ID. Look at here. For this session ID, look at here. For this session ID, the value was 5, is 5. Value is 5 or was 5, is 5. Now I deleted the session ID, and when I press enter, means I copy and paste it in new browser and deleted the session ID, and if I press browse enter, what is going to happen? This browser will get a new session ID, and when that goes to the web server treats that as a different user session. So at that point of time, let's see what is going to happen. So we will get a new session ID, and look at the value. We still have that 5. Okay, we still have that 5, but the session ID is now new, becomes new. So if you look at that, the same 5, now this is what is the means the URL different now, but the value is still 5. Okay. Now this is what is the significance difference between, look at this URL and this URL. Means copy this. Look at the significance difference. Between this URL and this URL. Obviously the session ID is different, though they are different session ID. They are still able to share that application state data, which means application state variables are available across all pages and across all sessions. You can think of these application state variables as multi-user global data, and application state variables, just like session state variable, they are also stored on the web server. And when does a session state variable clear? A session state variable is cleared whenever the sessions times out. The default is 20 minutes, but that is configurable. But whereas application state variables are cleared when the process hosting the application is restarted. Let's see. Application state variables are cleared when the process hosting the application is restarted. Let's see what we mean by that. Now look at this. We have set the sessions timeout toward 1 minute. Okay. If you remember, That is what we have specified in web.config file. Okay, now obviously a session will time out. In web.config file, obviously a session will time out when that time is expired. If there is that amount of inactivity period, if there is that amount of inactivity period, but whereas application, look at this, look at this, it is definitely more than 1 minute, but still when I click the button, it has that application state data. Means go to the browser, and if I click this button for 3 more times, so when will this it has that application's state data. So when will this value means 8 be lost? This will be cleared when the process hosting this application is restarted. For example, at the moment my application is running inside built-in Visual Studio. If you go to here, okay, my application running inside built-in Visual Studio development server, a built-in development server within Visual Studio. Okay, so obviously if I right click on my taskbar manager, if I go to taskbar manager and in process I click W, here we are not viewing the server. Okay, we can also use basically what I can basically do is I can stop it here as well. Means go here and stop the site. That's so obviously it is stopped now. Now if I go ahead and run this application, if I run the application, go to the ApplicationState.1 and control F5, going to start the it is going to start the the development server again, and now the value will be reset. Means the value will be reset to 0. So obviously when we on application state variable cleared, when our an application state variable cleared when the process hosting the application is restarted. Okay, you know that the value was 5 and I stopped the running site from here. So that reset the value to 5. Okay, or to 0. So there are the differences. So these are the differences between view state, session state, and application state. To be very precise, to be very precise, view state of a web form is available only within that web form. View state of a web form is available only within that web form, whereas session state data is available across all web form. But for a single session, whereas application data variables are available across all web form and across all session. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.